Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of That's Debatable. Hear me out. And today we're going to discuss a topic that's been in the news quite a bit the last many years. More on that in a moment. But first, let me introduce the panelists who together we comprise the debate team for Sibley High School in Minnesota, 1967-68 Sibley High School debate team. And let's do it in alphabetical order. First, we have Stan Greenberg, who is always talking to us from Santa Rosa, California. Stan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
Nice weather in California right now.
A little overcast, but and cool today, which I like.
Yeah, we can beat you on the cool today. It's just a cool, dreary, quote unquote summer day. So, anyway, welcome aboard. Michael Rosberg is with us. Mike, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay, getting some of my gardening done. Not as quickly as I'd like, but getting some of the work done.
Yeah, and he is quite an amazing gardener. I could show you photos, but he it's his one of his passions, and he's really good at it. Randy Smith is here today. Randall, how are you, and what's going on in your world?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. I can't see anything all that exciting is going on in my life. Um, Seeing a lot of my grandkids, that's nice.
Been there, done that. Finally, Mordecai Spector. We go back. We grew up in the same neighborhood. Really, used to ride the same bus to school. Mordecai, how are you doing?
Things could be worse.
A giant asteroid could have obliterated this entire set already. So yeah, things could be worse. But
My
uh,
wife left me.
to go to the grocery store, I hope.
She
But
went to Sweden.
oh, she went to Sweden. Yes, his wife is from Sweden, so we'll let her do that under the circumstances. Anyway, this is our panel as usual. Our topic, we have heard a lot about isms, sexism, racism, communism, socialism, and then another one that comes up quite commonly is drum roll, fascism. And we thought we'd focus on that topic today. And Randy has taken it upon himself to do at least a quick bit of checking to find a common definition for fascism. And then from there, we can talk about its dimensions or its application to what we're experiencing right now in our world. So, Randy, how would we define fascism?
Well, I used the AI system on my browser and got what looks to be a pretty decent definition. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, and ultranationalist political ideology characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, and forcibly suppressed opposition. It exalts the nation or race above the individual, demanding the subordination of personal interests to the perceived good of the group, often through a totalitarian one party state. This worldview justifies redemptive violence and the removal of ethical or legal restraints to achieve goals of internal cleansing and external expansion. Uh, so that's believe it or not, a brief definition.
Yeah. Well, of course, there are a lot of criteria there, and perhaps viewers would know why we're bringing this up because our current president has often been described as a fascist. And these criteria that you've listed seem to be the typical ones that are listed for fascism. The question becomes, since they're not measurable per se, what constitutes fascism as opposed, for example, with patriotism? If fascism is ultra patriotism, how do we know when we've reached that point as opposed to just your ordinary garden variety patriotism? And so all of these things are problematic that way, and that we don't have a way to kind of definitively answer them. But I'll open up to the rest of the panel. Why are we talking about fascism today, do you suppose? And how is it relevant to what we're experiencing in our world today politically? Anybody's welcome to take the floor here.
We had a demonstration yesterday with the U.S. Attorney for Minnesota announcing the indictments of 15 people who organized against the ICE invasion of Minnesota earlier this year, what was called Operation Metro Surge. So previously, the former Attorney General Pam Bondi visited Minnesota and announced indictments of 22 people. And most of those cases were dropped for lack of evidence and a depleted prosecutor's office and whatnot. We'll see how this case plays up. There was a 94-page indictment, and I have personal experience with a conspiracy case which was branded as terrorism. This was the case of the RNC 8, the Republican National Convention. 8 defendants, local political organizers, including my son Max, who were prosecuted for more than 2 years in Ramsey County Court until the case was about to go to trial, and everyone lost interest, and Max got the proverbial slap on the wrist. But there, with Operation Metro Surge, we saw this group of 3,000 immigration enforcement agents come to the Twin Cities, mainly Minneapolis, and began assaulting people, immigrants and U.S. citizens, and fatally shot 2 people. They shot Renee Good on January 7th, and they shot Alex Preddy on January 24th. The federal agents responsible for these killings have not been indicted.
Yeah. And of course, for those of you who don't remember, Mordecai was referencing the 2008 Republican National Convention, which was held in St. Paul, Minnesota. His son was involved in that. And certainly this does fit that criterion of trying to suppress any sort of alternative view, which seems to be endemic to fascism. And you see it in a number of ways, including even at rallies. I know at many of the Trump rallies, if there's a naysayer in the audience, they will be harassed, hit upon, escorted out of the building, and they're not in the mood to hear an alternative point of view. Whereas I can remember rallies where either Mr. Obama or Kamala Harris were speaking, and there were naysayers. And although it was unpleasant, both of them said, "Okay, let's spend some time. I want to listen to what you have to say. I'm not going to throw you out of the room or anything like that." And there's a kind of a qualitative difference between a fascist mentality and a democratic mentality in which all points of view are legitimate in the sense that they have a right to be heard. So, other thoughts, Mike or Stan, or?
Well, certainly one thing that our current president does, which is indicative of that sort of approach to the world, is that people who disagree with him or criticize him are often subject to legal procedures, which are, one may say it's not legitimate. So clearly there is some fascism, some of that type in this particular situation.
Yeah. And of course, at its extreme level, the whole thing going back to 2016, and some MAGA people are still kind of miffed by this. How come you never threw Hillary Clinton in jail? And that was the idea that she should be put behind bars because she was the opposing party. Yet to this day, there's never been a single incident, law, moment in time where Hillary Clinton has done anything that would warrant arrest and prosecution. But it's the idea that we don't like her, let's put her behind bars. And there is a certainty out there that that's what you should do for anybody who doesn't agree with you, is just get them out of the way. And that's a very anti-democratic kind of mindset.
Yeah, we have the prosecution of James Comey now. Again, weaponizing, as they say, the Justice Department. And within the last couple of days, news came out that Governor Newsom in California is being investigated as well. And he has been a thorn in Donald Trump's side. So using the state apparatus for prosecuting crimes to punish one's enemies is something we've seen, continue to see, more so than ever before, with our president, our current president.
Yeah. And of course, all
Well,
presidents, go ahead, Randy.
I'm thinking there's an interesting contrast with what happened with the January 6th rioters. Um, those prosecutions, which generally were not federal prosecutions, although some of them were, um, uh, are equated by people on the far right with the prosecutions that are going on now. The difference I think that you see is that those were submitted to juries, which convicted. We, if you care to find the footage of the actual event, there was a lot of violence. Um, and compare that to the indictment that was just handed down. I happen to have read most of it, um, and really the central part of the indictment is uh, people disagreed with what the government was doing here in um, Operation Metro Surge. It was simply a disagreement with the government. And my reaction, my wife and I were talking about this, was very similar to her reaction, which was, well, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, we have organization here. We have a certain level of coordination. Is that a conspiracy? Well, to be a criminal conspiracy, it has to be in furtherance of something criminal. What's going on here that's criminal other than disagreement with the government? Um, that's uh, that's the contrast I would make.
Yeah.
Assaulting and killing people, and looking for people to kill in the Capitol building is a far cry from uh, the prosecutions we're seeing now.
Yeah. Absolutely. And of course, um, a fascist mindset always is just to support your authority. And in that sense, of course, the current president very much fits that fits that image of somebody who simply wants to run the show himself. I think he might be frustrated by the fact that as a CEO, he had some opportunities to be autocratic, but in a democracy, something run by the people, the process really matters. And so the idea of just going into Iran and bombing Iran, from his perspective, that's what a president apparently ought to be able to do. Whereas in a democracy, government by the people, you build coalitions, you consult with Congress, you bring your case to the American people, and you develop support for that idea or that policy, rather than taking an end run around all that and just saying, I'm going to do it myself. And then, of course, as you're indicating, Randy, it's horrifically inconsistent, might say hypocritical, to be gracious to the people who were assaulting the Capitol. And the only reason he's being gracious is because they were doing that on his behalf, trying to get him to be reinstated as president, even through some fraudulent tactics involving fake electors, grabbing more votes from the state of Georgia, that so the Georgia's electoral votes would swing over to Trump. And so there was a whole array of things that were not built around process and building community. They were built around how can I stay in power? And that autocratic impulse and that autocratic behavior is very much linked to fascism. And I just think that's kind of the facts of the situation.
A
Yeah,
lot of effort seems to be going into fixing the next election, using the rubric of a rigged and stolen 2020 election. The Trump administration now is setting about to fix the results of the midterm elections coming up. And I heard on the news today that the Pulte nomination for Director of National Intelligence is running into trouble because our representatives in Washington see that his mission will be to rig the elections. Trump is talking about nationalizing the elections, and the previous DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, was sent to Fulton County, Georgia, to oversee the collection of ballots from the 2020 election. Trump keeps relitigating that. It's kind of a fixed idea in his deteriorating mind.
Yeah, another aspect of fascism is that the person or people in power kind of make a definition of what it is to be a citizen of that country. And so the people who want to be in good with the government sort of conform to that idea, those behaviors, those standards, whereas people that, let's say, don't look like them, or perhaps have the wrong religion, or have certain opposing political beliefs, they become anathema. And in the United States, there's quite the crusade these days to get rid of immigrants. And indeed, there's a whole series of these facilities where they're just storing people away in apparently the most horrible of conditions, which reminds me of concentration camps from about the 1930s.
Yeah, I think there will come a time, and it's coming, I hope sooner than later, when, as we look back on this period of time, the elements of fascism that we're talking about are going to be plainly revealed and understood to everybody. And I noticed that Sean Penn, I think, is putting out a movie of first of many movies that are going to try to dramatize what's been happening during this period of time. But it really is so unprecedented and so amazing. I mean, yes, all presidents have wanted to use executive powers to have some control over things. Obama was criticized for that. But in the end, the fundamental things, such as the Affordable Care Act, that wasn't something he could mandate. He had to work with Congress, get Congress to approve it. I was on a website today where someone said, "Well, you liberals are always so concerned that Trump wants himself named after everything. What about Obamacare?" And the respondent said, "You don't get it. Obamacare was a way to denigrate that legislation. The opponents of Obamacare called it Obamacare because they wanted to dismiss it, and they thought if they use the name Barack Hussein Obama, that will make sure that this thing doesn't pass." Obama called it the Affordable Care Act. But from a fascist point of view, it's always, elevating me. And there are so many me type statements that are part of the current administration, it becomes almost laughable how narcissistic he has become in terms of being that Mussolini-like figure who is the man who is in charge. And he admires strong leaders, and strong leaders of that sort are part and parcel of what fascism is about.
There's an element of authoritarianism, at least. I don't know that it's uh, restricted to fascism, but it's something that isn't mentioned in that definition, and I think it's worth pointing out. And that is uh, the rise of the loyal idiots. There was a really interesting a discussion in a New York Times article recently about this, and it's about how the leader manages to establish a cadre of people who will do anything for him. Um, and the way of doing it is basically to draw in the incompetent, people who can't advance at the level they want to on their own, um, And so what you do is you draw them in. They become the people who are carrying out your policies. And they know they can't make it succeed, at least on the level they want to, on their own. And so they attach themselves to you, and you wind up, well, with a couple of, as the fearless leader, you wind up with a couple of things. One is you wind up with a group of loyal followers. The other is it's a nice method of um, basically denigrating competency. Uh, People who know what they're doing get dismissed, get sidelined. The people who don't know what they're doing and don't really care to know what they're doing, those are your followers.
Yeah.
Another aspect is this move to put uncomfortable elements of U.S. history down the memory hole, as Orwell wrote. And there's a book, Erasing History, by Jason Stanley, the author of How Fascism Works. The subtitle of this is How Fascists Rewrite the Past to Control the Future. So our history is under contention, and the Trump administration has been removing interpretive signage from national monuments and battlefields to reflect their brand of patriotism, uh, what aligns with the MAGA faction. So it's hard to know where this is. I mean, there's pushback from the courts and popular opposition, but
And of course,
there's this move to patriotic education.
yeah, I mean, American exceptionalism has always been a part of our collective mentality, but never to this extent. Yeah, we think that the U.S. does a number of things quite well, and you know, in terms of our standing in the world and that sort of thing. But this is to erase these things and make us into this perfect nation that never had a problem involving race or gender or sexual orientation is so unfortunate and delegitimizes all of those people who are of a different skin color or gender or sexual orientation. And so when J.D. Vance says, "Can we trust a black pilot on an airplane?" Or no, it wasn't. It was Charlie Kirk who said that, who was killed, of course, unfortunately. Really, they're saying we can't even trust these people because they have been through DEI, have been given a place in our society that they didn't deserve in the first place. How could they deserve it? They are not light-skinned male straight individuals. So it's a very painful thing to watch as our history is sort of whitewashed, no pun intended. Other thoughts?
This is a sort of a related thought on the subject of rewriting history and fascism. Um, I find it hard as a former practicing lawyer to look at the Supreme Court decisions that are ostensibly based on history. Um, uh, since my undergraduate training was in intellectual history, it's painful to see the Supreme Court mangle history, completely rewrite history in order to justify their so-called originalist opinions. Um, uh, it's another I think another facet of um, moving away uh, from fact uh, and uh, uh, and uh, going with the fascist ideology.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Trump has packed the Supreme Court at this point with justices who favor his point of view, and that's that fits in with peopling the government with sycophants.
Yeah. Well, of course, I'm haunted by an interview after the election with Kamala Harris. I think it was with Stephen Colbert. And she said, he talked about how she'd predicted that all of these things were going to happen. And she said, well, yeah, in a way, but there's one thing I got totally wrong. I didn't realize that people would just fold and be complicit in this and would simply go along, whether it was the Supreme Court or the Republican Party or the press, that they would not step in there and make a stand when things that were clearly autocratic, undemocratic, and really fascistic were going on, that nobody wanted to stop him. And that's still pretty much the case. And so that was her regret looking back on the election, which again, according to our president, he won in a landslide, which is another one of those assaults on the truth. It was he won the election, but if you want landslides, there are a lot of other years that were. That was not a landslide victory when you don't even get a majority of the total votes. But
It's
Apart from
interesting.
the Supreme Court, you have the Department of Justice. The Attorney General is the former personal lawyer for Donald Trump. And there's a danger in politicizing law enforcement. Again, going back to Weimar Germany and the rise of the Nazi Party, with the black shirts and the brown shirts. You can see
yeah.
where this is leading.
Well, believe it or not, we're down to our last minute or two. I think if this is a debatable subject, fascism, I think all five of us are having trouble debating the other side because we're seeing such a strange set of things happening in Washington that it's hard to say that there is another side. But any final parting thoughts for members of this fine panel?
We need to stay in the fight here.
Whatever that means. Obviously, the November 2026 can't come too soon for many of us. Um, but
Maybe it's a
again,
50-50 deal.
yeah, I mean, we have a long tradition of democratic things, which hopefully makes all of this a little bit more difficult. But anything can happen. We've had that. We've learned that in the last few years that just about anything can happen. Things we never thought could possibly happen have happened. Well, on behalf of all of us, that would be Randy and Mordecai and Mike and Stan Greenberg. This is David Lepaco, and we wish you well and hope that all is going well in your world and that you'll join us the next time for another edition of That's Debatable. Take care.